Islanders radio broadcaster. And Chris, first off, going back to your call on Saturday of Matt Barzal's in between the legs goal, it got well-deserved praise. Awesome call, man.
Oh, thanks very much. It's funny. A lot of people have, been nice and had the compliments to me about that. But I just say, without Matt, that doesn't happen. So to me, that's all Matt. And it's kind of just happening in my lap. It just so happens, again, we're kind of down that end of the ice where we broadcast from now. So the Islanders actually hadn't scored a lot of second period goals at home this year. So they gave us a bunch in that game. And the leadoff one by Matt is still something that I think, easily the goal of the year of this season in the NHL. I don't know how anyone's going to possibly top it. There's just so many little elements that go into it that made it what it was. But that's all Matt Barzal, and he might be the only human being on the planet who could have pulled off something like that.
So we've seen Barzal do incredible things while he's been a part of the Islanders and in the NHL. You're seeing him come up the rink to go against Ristolainen. You see him get around him. Well, I know you have to think and talk pretty much at the same time, but what is going through your head? Are you planning on he might score an incredible goal here. I got to make this a great call.
Well, you don't think I got to make this a great call, but you realize, Stefan, definitely when Matt Barzal has the puck, that anything like that can happen. There's no doubt about it. Like, there's certain energy and a certain juice, for me anyway, when he has the puck, because he's so creative, he's so fast. And that's like I talked about. There's so many different elements of that goal. The first thing is, again, it's a rolling puck that he's chasing. Okay, that's a hard thing to corral in itself. Then you talk about Ristolainen, and if you watch closely, Ristolainen actually takes his hand off his own stick, grabs Barzal by the arm, trying to pull him down, and Barzy kind of just sheds that, and it's Ristolainen who goes crashing to the ice. Then remember, he's the fastest skater in the NHL. He's going full speed when he gets to the top of the crease. Then he slams on the brakes, and at that point, oh yeah, I'll put the stick back between my legs. Then I'll put the puck on it, with it, and then I'll shoot it back the other way that I was coming after I bring Carter Hutton with me, to the other side. So it just, there was so many little things going on that. I don't know how he pulled it off, but yeah, every time he gets the puck, I think he can do something great because we've seen him do it so often. But that still, to me, was something that combined kind of all those elements of, the speed of Matt Barzal, the hands, the breaking ability, and the ability to think about that in a split second after he finally shed Ristolainen is just remarkable.
Yeah, so obviously, usually your calls you have the most energy. I've heard other people on the radio. No, every call, every time the Islanders do something, it's energizing. Whether I'm, half asleep behind the wheel after a hockey game, Chris King wakes me up. But do you need to take a second after a goal like that to collect your thoughts and go, what did I just see?
You know what? It's interesting about Stefan. That's a really good question because so many times I was thinking more about this too, because I said at the time, I really needed some time to compose myself. And I was still like just out of my mind insane at like, did I just see what I just saw? Brock Nelson scored like a minute and a half later, and I barely got that call out because my brain was still on Matt Barzal. And the more I thought about it, like when we've had incredible calls or I've had calls like that, a lot of them have been, overtime, double overtime winners where you don't have to be, composed in the next minute and a half because the game's over. But that was the kind of thing that was, almost an equal of an overtime winner, but yet the puck is dropped, 30 seconds later, and now you have to get back to doing what your job is. So, yeah, if I listen back to my call, that Nelson goal, it's terrible because my brain is still on Barzal. I can't, get it out of my head that did I really just see what I think I saw? And I did. And, I get home that night and then I'm watching all the different angles and all the different replays, and it just gets better the more I see it. It doesn't, diminish it at all to see it from 12 different angles because you see something different every time that maybe you didn't see the time before. And especially that low ice look that was shot by the Islanders. That's the one in slow-mo, the low ice look where you really see him, cut on the edges. The snow comes flying off his blade. And that's when he's going, with the puck and the stick between the legs and somehow, sliding it back post. It was incredible.
Yeah, it really was. That goal was unreal. And I know that I was texting Stefan about it right away. I said, I can't believe I just saw that. And I remember going earlier in the season when Philip Edel did a Forsberg-esque move against the Penguins, and all the Rangers fans had that similar type of jubilation. But this goal just took it to the next level, and it was just phenomenal talent. But after 3 wins against the Sabres and then the slim win over the Bruins last night, do you think the Islanders are peaking, or do you think that this is just the level that they're going to be at the rest of the season?
Yeah, it's a good question, Brendan. I think, you could say peaking, but it's been so consistent, right? It's 6 wins in a row. It's points in 9 straight games, and it's now points in 17 of the last 19. So, I don't know if when you get to the peak, right? Because what can you do other than keep winning, right? And last year, we had something just like this around a similar time. It was a couple of weeks into the season. They rattled off that 10-game winning streak and a franchise record 17-game point streak. This feels a lot like that because, they're finding a different way to win every night. They're winning all different types of games. They've won 1-0 games and they've won 7-2 games. And they're just getting contributions from everybody, all four lines, all three deep pairs, and now especially both goaltenders. Early on in this run, obviously it was mostly just Varley, but now we're seeing Ilya Sorokin, get a regular turn to play, and he's been terrific in, his last couple of starts. So, yeah, I think you could say they're peaking, and the goal is just to keep it going right now because the division is so tight. It is a truncated season. They're going to hit the midpoint of the season come Saturday night already, so it's going by quickly, but it's been a fun run, very similar to last year's early season run.
Yeah, definitely. You kind of segued that too to our next one, right, Stefan? I mean, he really did. He's a pro.
I love when that works out. So you spoke about last year's, win streak, point streak, and obviously the big difference is the injury bug. The Islanders, who knows how well they could have kept that going if Pelech doesn't go down, if the fourth line doesn't get banged up. Besides that injury, what is the difference you're seeing from that streak last year to this streak this year?
Yeah, I don't know that there are that many differences, Stefan. I really don't. And again, the thing you're talking about is more towards the end of the year. Remember, the Pelech injury was really more in January, and then obviously Cizikas, kind of toward the pause in March. And remember that 17-game point streak actually started last year. Actually, I believe it started the 5th game of the year in. They actually started 1-3 last year and then went on that incredible run. So it was like week 2, week 3 when that run began. And this is really kind of week 3, week 4, I think, if you look back on it when this one began. So I just see more similarities than differences. I really would almost be hard-pressed to find a difference because of the fact of, the things I just talked about, like where everybody's contributing. And being healthy is a part of it, though. Absolutely. They haven't had a devastating injury like they had so many last year. And if you think about how they ended last year before the pause, it was just the opposite. They were winless in 7, and I think they had 2 wins in the last 13 games before the pause, which is almost exactly a year ago right now. So, they were struggling when that pause happened, and it might have been the best thing for them, to take that long break, and then obviously came firing all cylinders out of the chute in return to play in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
So you look back at, the Sabres series where they take 3 games, 5-2, 5-2, 5-2, which impressive in itself. That's able to happen. I did reach out to Eric Hornick to ask him. He didn't respond if that was the first time that happened. Then you look at last night's game, and the Islanders went into it 3-0-0 against the Bruins this season. Was last night, you think, a major statement game? Because, again, Buffalo's been not a great team this year. They should beat them, even though they've had Boston's number this whole year. How important do you think the win was to get that slim lead, especially after trailing, come out on top with 2 points?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I'll tell you about the Sabres series, too. The way I put it last night on the air, I said, it's funny. When you win a tennis match, you have to win 6 games, right? And obviously you hear a lot about, they took them in straight sets, right? Well, I said, they beat the Sabres in straight sets, 5-2, 5-2, 5-2, right? So it's almost like a tennis match. And I just think all the wins against the Bruins, to me, guys, were equally important. And to now be 4-0 against Boston, you have to remember a year ago, and not just a year ago, actually coming into this year, they'd only beaten the Bruins once in the last 10 games. So the Bees had dominated the Islanders. It was the one team they couldn't figure out. And if you think about it, the most amazing part of being 4-0 against Boston right now is all 4 of those games were tied going into the third period, every one of them. So they just had dominating third periods, in the first 3. And then last night, nobody scored in the third period. They found a way to finally win a game beyond 60 minutes, which is something they hadn't done all year. They and the Montreal Canadiens were the only 2 teams that hadn't won a game that went beyond 60 minutes. So, they couldn't get it done in overtime, but they found a way in the skills competition, if you will, to shoot out a great goal by Eberle and then an even better one by Beauvillier going Franz Nielsen on us with that backhand roof under the bar. That's something they needed to do. So I think just more of the point, win a game beyond 60 minutes, having not done that was key. And again, look, if the playoffs started tonight, guess who they're playing? The Boston Bruins, because the Bruins dropped to 4th with that loss. Islanders stayed in the top spot. And, sometimes you just have that mental hurdle to get over when a team owns you, like the Bruins had over the Islanders the last couple of years. And they are certainly over that now, beating them all 4 times so far.
I mean, you look back to – hold on one second. But you look back to last year, and I remember on Butch Goring's jersey retirement, they played the Bruins. And while it wasn't a 6-1 or a big win by the Bruins dominated, and you just thought of Islanders just can't beat the Bruins. They just can't do it. They can't do it at home. They can't do it away. And this year has just been complete 180. But Brendan, get to your question.
Well, I just wanted to ask, before we let him go, that he brought up the shootout. So are you a proponent of extending 3-on-3, or are you a fan of the shootout?
A big proponent of extending 3-on-3, Brendan. I think that's, so exciting. At least give it 10 minutes. Let's at least give it 10 minutes. I think how much, is an extra 5 minutes of 3-on-3, which usually features very few whistles, right? So what would that add to a game? 6, 7 minutes, maybe 8 minutes tops. I love the 3-on-3. I love the creativity of it. I love the, odd man rushes when it gets going end to end to end to end. Even last night, right? Both teams had great chances in overtime to win that. So yeah, to me, it's almost anticlimactic when you go to the shootout to try to end it. I know they want to have a winner and a loser, and they don't want it to run all night. But, why not go to, 10-minute 3-on-3 and then see how many more games you would decide that way rather than having to go to the skills.
Completely agree.
My last question for you. So speaking about that, in overtime, is it harder for a broadcaster to do because it could be so back and forth, or does it slow down a little bit? Because sometimes they set up in the offensive zone, they cycle. Is it easier on you?
Yeah, it's a good question, Stefan, and I think it is. You know what? It's a couple of things. It does slow down because possession is king, right? Everybody holds onto the puck forever. And the fact for me, instead of trying to identify 5 players on each side, it's now just down to 3-on-3. So what I'm normally doing is every time there's a whistle, I am literally looking at, okay, who are the 3 guys out there for the Islanders? Who are the 3 guys out there for the other side? Kind of getting that into my brain. And then, knowing I'm not going to, have a surprise where someone I didn't see come on the ice scores the goal, because you can really see the changes. They almost always occur in that possession game where a team will skate back into their own end. They'll change the other 2 guys. Then the guy who had the puck will dish it and get off, and he'll be replaced. So it's just very easy to see the change. It's very easy to identify the players. And as you said, it does slow down because there's so much possession. There is so much of just the same player holding on to the puck that it makes it a little easier to call in that regard. And again, the only pressure of it comes in, you want to get the call right. Obviously, when the goal is scored that ends the game, whether it's for the Islander side or the other side, you just want to get the call right. And with less players on the ice, it's very rarely on a deflection or on a puck, off somebody else and into the net, that type of thing. It's usually the guy who shoots it is the guy who wins the game, not having to hit off someone else and go in directly.
So, Chris, thank you so much for joining us for a little bit. We really do appreciate it. We always love having you on, and good luck on the call tomorrow night against the Devils.
All right. Thanks, Stefan. Thanks, Brendan. Always great being on the back check. And I heard you guys say at the top, it's episode 19. That's my whole life. Brian Trache, 19 in the rafters. So I think it was fitting that I was on tonight. It was meant to be.
There you go.
Perfect.
It writes itself.
Take care, guys.
See ya.